Hey guys, tonight's story starts with a chill in your bones, a bed that crunches when you move, and a goat breathing suspiciously close to your ear. You've just woken up inside a one-room hut where the walls weep, the roof mutters to itself, and someone's idea of insulation is stuffing your mattress with old cabbage leaves and regrets. Your breath fogs the air like it's gossiping about your life choices, and your toes, well, they've filed for separation. But before you get too cozy, take a second to gently tap that new hype button YouTube just added. It really does help little guys like me push through the algorithm. And take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You wake up coughing, not the polite kind, not the kind that suggests maybe you just need a sip of something warm. No, this is the sort of cough that comes from sleeping in a room where the air has texture, and that texture is mostly soot and poor decisions. The fire has given up. What remains is not even embers, just a pile of ash pretending to still matter. A soft, moody glow sulks beneath a collapsed triangle of charcoal, radiating about as much warmth as a dead stare from your Aunt Bertha. Something shifts beside you. A foot, not yours, plants itself firmly on your shin. A warm gust of breath curls against the back of your neck, slightly moist, questionably scented, and alarmingly rhythmic. You try not to breathe it in, just in case it's the goat. It might be your brother. It might be your brother and the goat sharing space. The goat, to her credit, is a better sleeper. The hut is darker than it should be. It's morning, technically, but the light is doing its best to stay outside, probably out of self-preservation. The thatch roof sighs above you, the walls creak like they're reconsidering their life choices, and the window a single square of glass so wavy it might be soup sweats cold down its inner panes, little rivers of ice inching their way toward the floor like reluctant snails. Your blanket is still mostly wrapped around your shoulders, although someone has definitely stolen half of it in the night. Probably your sister. She's got that look, the one that says, "What blanket?" While being very much surrounded by wool. Your straw mattress crunches when you move, loudly and accusingly. Bits of it have migrated into your clothes. One particularly enthusiastic stalk has made its way into your ear. You pull it out slowly, and it comes with a sound like a confession. You sit up, which turns out to be a mistake. Your back pops in 5 places. Your neck tries to join in but changes its mind halfway through. Your breath clouds the air in front of you, hanging there like a ghost not ready to move on. It's cold, not the sharp, crisp kind that wakes you up and makes you think of snowflakes and songs. This is the kind of cold that crawls up your sleeves and sets up camp between your ribs. It whispers to your joints and settles in your bones like an old relative who won't leave. Someone groans from under the pile of children and chickens on the far side of the room. It's the sound of a man waking up in a bed made for 4 people that currently holds 8, a broom, and possibly a duck. No one acknowledges it. This is not the time for conversation. This is the time for silent suffering and pretending you slept better than you did. The fire needs to be relit. Everyone knows it. No one wants to be the one. You glance around and make accidental eye contact with your youngest sibling, who immediately fakes sleep by letting his mouth fall open in a way that only children and recently concussed villagers can manage convincingly. The goat sneezes. Someone curses quietly. The foot is still on your shin. You consider bravery, true bravery, the kind where you get up, crawl over 3 limbs and a sleeping dog, and coax life back into the fireplace without dying of smoke inhalation. You also consider staying where you are and letting nature decide who freezes first. Eventually, shame wins. Not much, just enough. Your toes hit the dirt floor, and you remember that dirt can be cold. Impressively so. The sensation shoots through you like a warning from your ancestors. You shuffle across the room, each step a negotiation with the straw, the dust, and the faint crunch of something you hope wasn't once alive. You find the fire with your fingers, brittle twigs in the corner, a spark waiting in the flint. It takes 3 tries, then 6, then a quiet conversation with God. Finally, a hiss, a flicker. A tiny flame licks the edge of the kindling, then dies. You whisper encouragement, possibly threats. You try again. This time it catches. The fire crackles like it's pretending it was never out. You feed it slowly sticks, then larger pieces of wood, then a chunk of the broken stool no one's used, since the back leg betrayed Uncle Hal during Epiphany. Warmth tiptoes back into the room, just a little. Enough that the goat makes a pleased noise and shifts closer to the hearth. Enough that your sister releases the corner of the blanket and lets you have it back. Not all of it, just enough. Behind you, the hut stirs. Someone farts. Someone else denies it. The dog stretches with a groan that sounds theological, and for a moment, you think you smell bread, but it's probably just the smoldering edge of the stool. You lie back down, shoulders steaming faintly now that the heat's returned. The foot is gone from your shin. The breath on your neck has repositioned to your elbow. The goat is breathing deeper, and the fire, traitorous as it is, burns quietly like it never left. You're lying on a mattress that crunches when you breathe. The straw is supposed to be dry, but there's a dampness to it like it remembers a flood, or at least a very enthusiastic goat. Bits of it stick through the cloth covering like needles with boundary issues. One has lodged itself under your shoulder blade and makes its presence known every time you move. You try shifting slightly to one side, hoping for mercy. The mattress responds with a squeal that sounds like someone stepping on a mouse that insulted their mother. You freeze, waiting to see if the noise wakes anyone else. It doesn't. Someone snores. Someone else coughs into the darkness with the intensity of a man trying to exercise his own lungs. The goat lets out a long sigh. You think it's a sigh. It could also be judgment. Either way, she doesn't appreciate your struggle. Your straw mattress, generously donated by the barn last harvest, has what you'd call a personality. It rustles ominously when you're still and groans when you're not. There's always something poking you, somewhere. And every time you think you've found a soft spot, it turns out to be someone's elbow, or worse, someone's foot. You swear the mattress shifts during the night. Not just settles shifts, like it's inching away from you, tired of being blamed for your spinal issues. You fluff the corner with one hand. Straw dust puffs into the air like powdered complaints. You cough once, twice, then inhale carefully through your mouth to avoid another round of atmospheric barnyard. Laying back down, you try adjusting your limbs into a position that doesn't press directly against straw, floor, or sibling. There isn't one. Your head rests on a pillow that once might have held feathers, long before they escaped in protest. What remains inside feels like mashed potatoes that gave up. You punch it into shape and immediately regret it as your knuckles find something with corners. It may be a stick. It may be a chicken bone. You don't ask questions anymore. The bedbugs, of course, are awake. You haven't seen them, but you know they're there. You can feel their confidence. They walk with the arrogance of creatures who know there's no plan B. You scratch your ankle, then your neck, then your dignity. The mattress offers no support, emotional or otherwise. Someone to your left shifts. The bed responds with a theatrical creak. A foot brushes your knee. You whisper no into the dark like it might matter. It doesn't. The foot remains, possibly grows roots. You close your eyes and try to imagine what it would be like to sleep on something soft, something with layers, something with boundaries, like a cloud or a very friendly sheep. But you're a peasant, so you sleep on straw, because straw is free, and beds are just social agreements between you, the earth, and whatever crawled in with you last night. You once asked your mother if you could have a blanket between you and the mattress. She said no, because the mattress was the blanket. Then she laughed and told you about the winter of '86 when they had to sleep on snow wrapped in hope. The thing is, this bed is still better than the floor. You've tried the floor. It's colder, harder, less forgiving. The straw at least makes an effort. A loud, splintery, itchy effort, but an effort nonetheless. You tell yourself that each stab is just your mattress giving you feedback, constructive criticism, motivation to move up in the world, or at least sideways. You finally settle into something resembling comfort, which really means your limbs have gone numb in just the right combination that you no longer feel most of the straw. The mattress stops creaking. The night exhales around you. The fire murmurs its slow return. You allow your body to sink just slightly, like a spoon into a bowl of very crunchy porridge. It's not a good bed. It's barely a bed. But it's yours. It smells like hay and onions and a little bit of goat. But it holds you in its own terrible way. And when sleep finally comes, it comes like a blanket made of straw and bad decisions. But it's still sleep, and that's enough. You have 3 blankets. You call them blankets because it makes you feel like a person. But deep down, you know the truth. One of them used to be a curtain. It still has the rod loops on top, which sometimes get tangled in your hair when you turn too fast. It's thin, scratchy, and holds heat about as well as an apology from your older brother. The second one smells unmistakably like pickled onions. No one knows why. You've washed it twice, but the scent returns each time like a loyal ghost. The third is a burlap sack someone cut open, possibly in a moment of desperation. It's rough, stiff, and has writing on the side that used to say, turnips. You try not to read it at night. It makes the cold feel personal. You lay them out like a sad lasagna. Curtain on top, sack in the middle, onion blanket closest to the skin, because at least it's warm, even if you smell like a cellar. You tell yourself this is fine. This is strategic layering. This is science. But science doesn't explain why the warmth leaves your body within seconds, like it's offended by your choices. You roll yourself into a bundle and call it a cocoon. Your sister calls it giving up. She's not wrong. Her blanket isn't much better, an old tapestry with a hole the size of ambition, and you watch her wrap it tight around her shoulders like she's preparing for a medieval bank heist. Across the room, your cousin is using what might be a curtain rod as a body warmer. You envy his innovation. The dog, at least, knows what to do. He slinks across the dirt floor with the confidence of a creature that has found every warm spot in the house. He gives you a long look, half contempt, half opportunity, and waits. You lift the onion blanket in. Invitation. He slides in without hesitation and plants himself firmly against your stomach, a living furnace with fleas. He shifts once, turns in a slow circle, then flops with the weight of inevitability. You exhale. That helps. With the dog added, your warmth increases by a small but measurable margin. You can feel your fingertips again. Not in a joyful, life-affirming way, but more of a, these aren't entirely frostbitten way. It's enough. You whisper a quiet prayer to Saint Warmth, even though no one's ever confirmed if that's a real saint or just something your mother made up during one of her particularly sarcastic advents. Either way, you offer him your best thoughts and promise to be less of a disappointment tomorrow. The blanket stack shifts as your brother turns over beside you, pulling half the curtain with him. You fight back with your knees. The sack crinkles in protest. The dog grumbles but does not move. No one apologizes. This is war, but also bedtime. You hear the wind outside the hut, clawing against the walls like it's trying to join the sleepover. You pull the curtain blanket tighter around your shoulders and tuck the onion edge under your chin. Your toes are still cold. You consider tucking them into the dog's belly, but the last time you did that, he farted so aggressively you considered moving to a monastery. Someone sneezes. The echo bounces off the low ceiling beams and stirs the straw in the corner. You think about asking if they're okay, but you know they aren't. No one is okay. That's not the point. The point is survival. And your patchwork pile of discarded textiles, barn animals, and personal shame is technically keeping you alive. You close your eyes. The blankets itch. The dog snores. The onion smell wraps around you like a bad decision in a warm bath. And somehow, against all odds, you start to drift. It's not comfort. It's not peace. But it's enough to sleep. You don't remember when she got there. One moment, it was just the usual mess of blankets and elbows and your cousin's questionable feet. And the next, there was a weight near your thighs and the unmistakable sound of hooves adjusting themselves with smug finality. The goat has joined you. No one moves to stop her. No one even speaks. You all just shift slightly to make space, the way you would for royalty or a very insistent ghost. She settles in like she owns the place. Technically, she kind of does. Her milk gets more praise than any of your siblings. She once scared off a tax collector, and now she's here, in bed, chewing something thoughtfully in the dark, possibly straw, possibly part of your curtain blanket. You consider asking her to stop, but her body heat has already begun to bleed into your legs like a slow blessing, and the last thing you want to do is start a conversation that might lead to her leaving. She smells like hay, lanolin, and decisions made in haste. It should be unpleasant. It's not. Compared to the onion blanket, it's practically perfume. Her fur is coarse and bristly and somehow still softer than the sack you sleep on. You feel her breath on your knee, hot, damp, vaguely curious, and you pray silently that she doesn't decide your toes are edible. She's done worse. Around you, no one stirs. Either they've accepted the situation, or they're asleep and blissfully unaware of the barn animal pressed against the bedding. Your sister twitches in her sleep and mutters something about gravy. The dog, sandwiched between you and the wall, lets out a low growl that turns into a snore before it can really commit. The goat flicks one ear in disapproval and resumes chewing, eyes half-lidded in the darkness like she's been through 3 lifetimes, and this is still somehow not the worst one. You try to remember a time when goats weren't part of your bedtime routine. It feels distant, fanciful, like a memory from someone else's life. You imagine city people, with their fireplaces and feather beds and complete lack of livestock in their sleeping quarters. The thought makes you laugh under your breath. The goat snorts in agreement, or possibly indigestion. The fire crackles faintly across the room, not enough to make a difference, but just enough to whisper that it's trying. A thin thread of warmth curls lazily through the air. The goat shifts and presses closer, her side radiating heat like a clay oven with opinions. Her flank is warm, solid, and stubborn. She doesn't apologize when she elbows your ribs. She doesn't have to. She's contributing. Your blanket bunches up around your shoulders, and you use one hand to tug it over both yourself and the goat. She allows it. This is the peak of trust. She yawns a terrifying thing up close, full of molars and menace, and then rests her jaw directly on your ankle. You don't dare move. It's an honor. Possibly a threat. It's hard to tell with goats. You listen to the sound of her breathing, the occasional twitch of her legs as she dreams. Whatever it is, goats dream about grain bins, maybe, or vengeance, and you begin to feel something almost like comfort, not joy, not peace, but a strange, hushed sort of belonging, like the cold can't quite reach you as long as this ridiculous animal is draped over your legs like a lumpy quilt. Someone coughs from the far side of the hut. The dog kicks in his sleep. The wind howls once against the wall, then gives up. Inside, everything is quiet, still, just straw, breath, and the rhythmic click of goat teeth softly grinding against the night. You close your eyes. The goat stays. You wake up and watch your breath drift out of your mouth like a tiny ghost trying to escape. It lingers above your face for a moment, then vanishes, like it's realized it doesn't want to be here either. You shift under the pile of scratchy fabric and damp livestock, trying not to disturb the goat, who has claimed your legs as her territory and may take retaliation personally. The blanket, if you can call it that, crackles slightly as it moves, dust puffing into the cold air like it's exhaling too. The hut breathes around you, not in a poetic, cozy way, but in the way that drafty walls and loose thatch inhale every gust of wind and pass it directly to your spine. The ceiling, which was once dry, now seems to weep at random intervals. Not from leaks exactly, though there are those, but more like it's sweating from the pressure of continuing to exist. You hear a soft drip near the hearth and instinctively duck, just in case the hut is feeling generous this morning and wants to baptize you in icy roof water. Your breath comes out again, another cloud. You try to catch it on the exhale this time, like a game. It buys you 10 seconds of distraction from the way your toes have fused into one singular icy sensation. You haven't felt your left foot in a full day. You're beginning to suspect it's either dead or hibernating. The walls creak like they're trying to gossip. Every so often, a plank shifts with a low groan that makes you look up and wonder, just briefly, if this is the day it all comes down. No one talks about it out loud, but everyone has the same silent agreement. If the hut collapses, you will simply lie there and accept it, possibly using the wreckage for insulation. The dog lifts his head, sneezes once into the room like he's blessing it, then flops back down with his nose under your armpit. You don't take it personally. It's warmer there. You hope. The goat hasn't moved in over an hour. You think she might actually be asleep or plotting. Either way, she's generating a small but valuable amount of heat that you're not about to question. Outside, the wind picks up. The door rattles. It's not fully closed, hasn't been for 2 years, but a well-placed bucket and a rock do their best to convince it otherwise. The sound it makes is somewhere between a moan and a complaint, like the hut itself is tired of holding in your collective despair. You glance toward the tiny window and see the edge of dawn trying to seep in. The frost on the inside of the glass has formed into weird little patterns, like nature's idea of interior decorating. You reach out and touch it, just to remind yourself that your fingers still exist. The cold bites you instantly, and your knuckle sticks to the glass for half a second too long. You pull back and whisper a small apology to your hand. Your mother stirs somewhere behind you, wrapped in 3 shawls and one very offended cat. She mumbles something about a dream she had involving soup and King Edward. No one questions it. Dream logic belongs to the dreamer, and your mother has earned the right to romance royalty in her sleep if it gets her through another night in a house made of regrets and poorly chosen materials. You lie back down, trying not to think about the puddle forming in the corner or the ceiling beam that keeps making popping noises like it's rehearsing its exit. The hut groans again, one long breath out, and you realize it's not just wind, it's your house sighing with you. It's tired too. You shift, nestle deeper into the goat, and pull the onion blanket tighter. The room smells like damp wool, burnt wood, and the stubborn will to not die. And still, impossibly, the hut holds. It's not so much a room as it is a collective decision to lie down in the same general direction. Walls lean in like they're trying to listen. The hearth glows weakly in the corner, spitting out a flicker of warmth when it remembers, and you're somewhere in the middle of what could generously be described as a heap. Your left leg is under your sister. Your right arm is under the dog. Someone's toes are wedged between your shoulder blades, like they've mistaken your spine for a warming stone. It might be your brother. It might be your uncle. You don't ask anymore. The hens have taken up residence near the door, pressed into a corner beside the bucket you're not supposed to use unless it's an emergency. They peck at invisible things in their sleep. Occasionally, one clucks softly, like she's dreaming of better hay. Their feathers are surprisingly warm, though, and you've caught your mother more than once scooting a bit closer under the guise of adjusting her shawl. Your uncle, the one no one openly acknowledges but everyone is aware of, claims the spot nearest the fire. He sleeps like he owns the floor, limbs splayed out in 4 directions like a man who's never been cold a day in his life. He snores with conviction. It's not a sound, it's an event. At one point last night, you woke up convinced the roof was caving in, only to realize it was just Uncle Edric hitting a particularly aggressive inhale. You tried sleeping by the wall once, but the draft came through the cracks like it had a personal vendetta. Every time the wind howled outside, a chill crept along the floor and under your shirt, whispering things like, "Give up," and "You're mostly frostbite anyway." So now you sleep closer to the middle, where there's body heat and less chance of waking up frozen to the wall. There's a thing under the table. No one knows what it is anymore. It moved once, about 6 days ago. Since then, it's been quiet. Your father says it's just the winter root basket with a coat over it. Your sister swears she saw it blink. At this point, you've all silently agreed to let it be. If it's alive, it's staying warm, and that's more than can be said for half the room. You sleep where you land. That's the rule. No one gets a bed. Not really. There are piles of straw, some more respected than others, and a handful of personal territories established by years of shifting elbows and passive-aggressive blanket tugs. If you're lucky, you get the spot near the dog. If you're unlucky, you get the corner where the roof drips, and you have to fashion a hat out of yesterday's breadcloth and your own sadness. Snoring happens in waves. It's like a symphony, poorly timed but passionate. Your father starts it off with a low, wheezing hum. Then your uncle joins in, deeper, with occasional dramatic pauses, as if he's forgotten how breathing works. The dog contributes a whimper here and there, and someone, probably your cousin, adds a nasal whistle that makes your eye twitch. You've all learned to take shifts, dozing in between crescendos, like sailors in a very damp, very cramped ship that never leaves port. You roll over, dislodging a potato someone apparently used as a pillow. It thuds softly against the floor, and no one moves. At this hour, nobody cares. As long as the hut doesn't collapse and the chickens don't try to roost in your hair again, you're willing to accept almost anything. Sleep comes eventually, not like a gift, but like an overdue bill sliding under the door. You settle deeper into the pile, shifting your head onto a slightly less lumpy section of the curtain blanket. Someone mutters in their sleep. The fire cracks once, quietly, like it's trying not to wake anyone. You close your eyes. This is how you sleep. All of you. Together, awkward, elbowed, and slightly off-key. But warm, mostly. And that's enough to call it home. You wake up with that quiet, creeping urgency that begins in the lower belly and spreads outward like a dawning realization that your body has betrayed you. For a while, you try to pretend it's not happening. You curl tighter under the onion-scented blanket, shift slightly to redistribute the pressure, and tell yourself that maybe, just maybe, you're imagining it. That the sensation is a dream or a passing suggestion, like when your brother said he was moving out at 15. It is not. The need sharpens with each breath. You stare at the ceiling, which stares back with a drip forming dangerously above your left eye. Someone shifts, beside you, mumbling something about soup. The goat exhales onto your toes. The dog is dead asleep and drooling against your arm. You are fully pinned by livestock and relatives, each one radiating the kind of body heat that would be delightful if you weren't currently debating whether wetting yourself and freezing into a shame sculpture might be the easier option. The chamber pot is out of reach. Worse, it's full. You know this because someone used it after dinner and didn't have the decency to do the polite chamber pot shuffle that lets the next person know there's still capacity. You'd checked it earlier with one eye and immediately pretended you hadn't. It sloshed in a way that haunts you still. You could empty it, technically, but that would involve walking outside, and the door is frozen shut again, because of course it is. Last night, your father had to kick it open with both feet and a prayer. That was before the snow blew in and buried the front step like it owed it money. You imagine trying to chip your way out in the dark, half-dressed, shivering violently, with your only weapon being the lid of the pot and a vague sense of desperation. You try bargaining. Maybe you don't need to go. Maybe if you sleep a little longer, the sensation will recede into the background, like the sound of your uncle's wheezing or the smell of the goat's general attitude. You squeeze your eyes shut and count backwards from 50. Like that will somehow convince your bladder this is not the time. By 37, your body is making threats. By 15, you're negotiating with saints. Saint Quiet, Saint Dignity, Saint Please don't make me move. You consider peeing out the window, but the window's frozen too, and someone's head is directly under it. Possibly your sister, possibly a sack of onions. The darkness makes no promises. You could try the corner, but that's where the chickens sleep, and you're not about to start that kind of feud. They remember things. They hold grudges, and you still need eggs. So you do what any sensible person would. You wait. You clench. You breathe slowly, shallowly, like you're trying not to anger a wild animal that lives in your torso. Every creak of the hut feels louder now. Every rustle of hay is a temptation. The dog yawns and shifts his paw onto your bladder. You stare at him, blinking slowly, reconsidering your entire relationship. Finally, after what feels like hours, you reach the breaking point. You throw off the blankets with the urgency of someone evacuating a burning building. Wake the goat, who is not pleased, step on someone's hand, and trip over the dog, who grunts and immediately goes back to sleep like none of this is his problem. The pot is exactly where you left it. You approach it like a bomb. One false move, and you're a story people tell to make each other flinch. You lift the lid. You stare into the abyss. The abyss stares back, judgmental and disturbingly full. But you do it. You go. You win. You don't cry, but it's close. Afterward, you stumble back to your pile of shared warmth and questionable blankets. The dog growls as you rearrange yourself. The goat sighs dramatically and puts a hoof on your thigh. The air is cold. The hut creaks. You've survived the night's greatest challenge. Barely. You're wearing everything you own. Not metaphorically, literally. Every garment you've ever been handed, inherited, stolen from a cousin, or stitched out of an old sack is currently on your body, layered with the desperation of someone who's lost all shame and most circulation. You're reasonably sure some of these clothes weren't designed for humans. One sleeve feels like it belongs to a tunic. The other might be from a curtain. You're not asking questions anymore. Your Pentecost shirt, the good one with the buttons that almost match, and the collar that makes you feel like royalty in a very itchy way, is now under 2 cloaks and an apron that still smells like turnips. You didn't want to wear it. It felt like giving up on hope, on the idea that spring will ever arrive and that someday, just maybe, you'll attend a church service without your kneecaps trembling. But the cold has stripped you of dignity and fashion sense. Warmth now outranks holiness. And yet, you're still cold. You lie under the usual pile of blankets, if pile is a fair word for one sack, one curtain, and a wet dog, and you feel the chill in your bones like a bad prophecy. It doesn't matter that your arms barely bend anymore, or that your clothes rustle when you shift like a haystack learning to walk. The cold finds you. It whispers through seams, slides between buttons, coils around your ankles like a bored cat with a grudge. Your toes are the worst. You're no longer convinced they're part of you. They've become little frozen artifacts, relics of a warmer life you might have once had. You press them against the goat's side. She moves. You curse quietly into the night and try again. In a moment of inspired madness or divine intervention, you remember something your grandmother once said about cabbage leaves keeping warmth in, or maybe it was about warding off demons. Either way, the logic tracks. You peel 2 half-frozen leaves from the vegetable pile in the corner, wrap your feet like they're leftovers, and whisper an apology to the cabbage. It works. Barely. But barely is enough when your other option is frostbite and crying. You don't mean to cry. It just happens. Not a sobbing, dramatic cry, but a slow, leaky kind of sadness that slides down your cheeks and into your collar. The kind of cry that's less about emotions and more about the body saying, "This is it. This is all we can offer you." You let the tears fall. They warm your face for half a second before turning cold and soaking into your Pentecost shirt, which now smells faintly of boiled greens and regret. The greens, cabbage doesn't judge you. It just stays wrapped around your toes like a quiet friend who knows you're at your limit. You wonder if this counts as communion. Probably not. But it feels close. Around you, the room breathes with snores, snorts, and the occasional chicken foot scratching at the dirt. The dog mutters something in his sleep. The fire sighs. Your uncle lets out a whistle snore that somehow harmonizes with the wind outside. No one stirs. No one knows that you've reached a new level of cold-induced philosophy, lying here in 6 layers of peasant chic with produce tied to your extremities. You shift under the blankets and feel the edge of your Pentecost collar stab you in the neck. The goat exhales and shifts, her hoof resting squarely on your shin like she's claiming the territory. You let her. It's warmer that way. You close your eyes, wrapped in fabric and doubt, the faint scent of cabbage rising around you like incense. The fire flickers once. You pretend it's a blessing. You fall asleep dressed for battle, smelling like soup and dreaming of warmth. It starts with a quiet shuffle. A slow, sneaky slide of bodies inching closer together in the dark, each person pretending it's not happening, that they're perfectly content exactly where they are. But the truth is, everyone's cold. Everyone wants the center, the warm zone, the sacred ground where heat collects like treasure and bodies become reluctant furnaces. And tonight, like every night, it's war. You've wedged yourself between your cousin and your sister, both of whom have bones made of angles and sleep with the grace of collapsing furniture. The cousin mutters in his sleep and keeps pulling the blanket toward his chin like it belongs to him. Your sister's elbow is in your ribs. You retaliate with a casual knee to her thigh. She hisses through her teeth but doesn't move. In the middle of the pile, immovable and smug as a rock blessed by the sun, is your grandmother. She's 87 years old, has 3 working teeth, and snores like a church bell falling down a well. But she is warm. She is so warm it radiates outward like a beacon, and she knows it. That's why she guards her position like a dragon hoarding embers. She got there first, somehow always gets there first, and now lies sprawled across the best straw, a contented grunt escaping her every few breaths. Her shawl is wrapped around her like a personal fort. Her feet are tucked beneath the dog for extra insulation. She has pulled the goat halfway over her hip like a heat-seeking blanket with hooves. You've tried negotiating before. You once offered her a turnip and a spot near the fire if she'd trade positions for just one night. She didn't even answer, just laughed and told you stories of when winters were colder, houses were smaller, and people slept outside with wolves for warmth. You didn't believe her, but you respected the hustle. Someone grunts, someone else shoves. A small ripple of movement jolts the pile, and suddenly there's an opening near the middle. It's chaos. Your brother lunges for it like a soldier leaping onto a battlefield. Your aunt screeches. The dog growls. A fist connects with someone's shoulder, possibly yours, and the whole pile rearranges itself with the grace and fury of a barnyard brawl done in silence. Your grandmother doesn't move. Not an inch. She tightens her grip on the goat and mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, "Over my dead body." Elbows fly. Toes kick. The curtain blanket is now halfway off the pile, dragged by the dog in protest. Your cousin's head ends up under your armpit. Someone's breath is directly in your face and smells like cabbage and defiance. You lurch forward in a last-ditch effort to get closer to the warmth, only to be blocked by a very determined chicken and your grandmother's bony knee. You fall back, defeated. It's not about comfort anymore. It's not even about sleep. It's about not letting your siblings win. It's about pride and survival, and the simple primal knowledge that whoever controls the center controls the night. The cold bites harder near the edges. The air is sharper. Your fingers curl in on themselves like they're trying to disappear. Your grandmother sighs contentedly. The goat shifts and settles in with her like a traitor. You close your eyes and imagine summer. Imagine heat without conflict. Imagine having a bed to yourself. Then your cousin snores directly into your ear, and the dream dies a quiet death. This is the way of things. In the huddle, there is no justice, only strategy, and your grandmother always wins. You wake up to a sound that's somewhere between a cough and a prayer. It's your father, rising like an ancient tree from the tangle of sleeping bodies, shaking the straw from his shoulders and muttering curses at his knees. His breath fogs in front of him like a ghost trying to offer advice. You pretend to still be asleep. Everyone does. Because whoever moves first owns the fire. And that means crawling out from under the pitiful warmth of bodies and rags and facing the pre-dawn freeze head-on. Naked, exposed, and judged by the frost itself. But he's already moving. He steps over your cousin, trips on the dog, swats away a chicken, then kneels at the hearth, grumbling low and steady, like he's speaking to the spirits of logs past. The fire, or what's left of it, is a sullen orange glow hiding under gray ash. It doesn't care about your survival. It's done enough. It wants to die in peace. Your father pokes it with the iron rod, the one so bent it's now more of a suggestion than a tool. A spark jumps. Everyone in the room hears it and collectively pretends not to care, though half the eyes are already open. You watch him feed it bark chips, dried moss, the last of the straw from the goat's bedding, sorry, goat, and finally, the sacred corner of last year's calendar. December 17th, gone in a flash of purpose and faint regret. The goat groans but says nothing. She understands sacrifice. The fire catches slowly, as if reconsidering. Your father leans close and breathes on it like he's trying to revive an old friend who owes him money. You catch the words he's muttering, a mixture of threats, encouragement, and what might be a hymn. It's unclear, but the flame stirs. It flutters, then flares. Heat. Not much, but enough. It dances up and out with a crackle that might as well be angels singing. You sit up, pretending it's casual, like you weren't desperately hoping to feel your toes again. Others do the same. The dog makes a big show of stretching. Your brother coughs meaningfully and sidles closer. The goat eyes the hearth, like she's about to sue for damages. The warmth spreads outward in slow pulses, like ripples in a frozen pond. You scoot forward, hands out, sleeves rolled back to expose the pink tips of fingers that had nearly forgotten what blood feels like. The fire sees them and licks at the air, generous now, suddenly magnanimous, like it's remembered its role in your collective survival. You whisper to it under your breath, a thank you, a plea, a warning. You'll give it more if it asks. Anything. Old cloth, split spoons, your cousin's wooden comb. He'll never miss it. Your grandmother arrives at the hearth with a reverence you reserve for saints and warm porridge. She crouches low, palms wide, eyes closed. She says nothing, but everyone knows she's communing. You don't question it. She has made offerings to the fire in winters past and carries the authority of someone who has watched it die and brought it back with a single splinter and a glare. You add a few more sticks, ones you stole from the woodpile the day before and hid behind the bucket. You are a fire priest now, a bringer of warmth. The others acknowledge you with small nods as they gather in the growing glow. It is not love, it is survival. But for a moment, they look at you like you matter. Your father sits back, satisfied. The fire dances higher, casting golden light on the walls, the sleeping sacks, the patched elbows, and frost-bitten feet of your people. You can feel your toes again. You can move your fingers without wincing. The goat shifts closer and offers no protest when you lean against her. The room changes. Still cold, yes, but no longer cruel. You've done it. You've made it another night. And for a little while, the fire loves you back. The smoke isn't pleasant. It slithers up from the fire with the confidence of something that has no intention of asking permission, curling into your nose, your eyes, your throat, like it pays rent. It's the kind of smoke that makes you blink and cough and question if warmth is really worth it. But it is. Oh, it absolutely is. Because this smoke, for all its crimes, comes with heat. And that makes it family now. You hang your socks over the fire on a stick so crooked it might have once been a question mark. They drip faintly. The smell is somewhere between damp wool and betrayal. You don't remember how your socks got wet in the first place, but they always are. Like they've developed their own weather system. Now, they sizzle as they steam, curling at the toes like they're trying to escape their fate. One of them hisses louder than expected, and everyone flinches. The goat sneezes. The fire pops. Someone mutters a blessing just in case. Still, the air is changing. There's warmth now. The bitter edge of night has dulled. The dog stretches out near the hearth, tongue lolling, as if he too is beginning to believe in things again. Your little brother clutches a piece of bread that's more crumb than crust, and your mother hums something low and tuneless as she kneads the morning's dough with a rhythm that feels ancient and oddly reassuring. You glance around and realize that no one looks quite as angry today. The arguments have taken a temporary break. The usual bickering about who stole whose potato or who farted under the blanket last night has quieted. Not gone, never gone, but softened. The fire has done that. Warmth makes people generous, or at least less inclined to violence. Your uncle, the one who mostly speaks in yawns and vague insults, actually cracks a smile. It's small and shaped like he hasn't used it in a few years, but it's there. He holds his hands near the fire and lets out a sigh that sounds like a barn door finally giving up and swinging open. Your grandmother, eternal and immovable, sits with the goat draped across her lap like a particularly smug shawl. She peels a turnip slowly, ceremonially, and nods along to the humming. You flip your socks. They've gone crispy at the edges, which you convince yourself is an improvement. Your toes twitch in anticipation. There's something almost holy about the thought of dry socks, not clean. That's a luxury from another universe. But dry? Dry is enough to make a person believe they'll live to see another season. The smoke thickens for a moment, and someone opens the door just a crack to let it out. A blast of air punches into the room like winter's way of reminding you it's still in charge. The fire stutters. You all shiver. The door is slammed shut immediately and resecured with a bucket, a rock, and what might be a shoe. The lesson is clear. No one tests the outside twice. Your socks are steaming now. You prod them gingerly and decide they've reached the technically wearable stage. You pull them on. They are stiff, uneven, and smell like roasted misery, but they are warm. You wiggle your toes and feel actual sensation. It's intoxicating. More humming now. Your cousin joins in. Badly. Someone adds a drum beat on the side of a wooden bowl. It's not music exactly, but it's close enough to pretend. Spirits lift. The room doesn't feel like a punishment anymore. It feels like survival with flair. You lean back against the wall, socked feet pointed toward the fire, eyes still watery from the smoke. The roof doesn't leak today. The goat hasn't tried to bite anyone in hours. The fire is alive. The bread is baking. And for the first time in a while, you think you might just make it through the week. You rise from the straw like a curse being broken. Slowly, with much creaking and the faint protest of muscles that clearly signed a different contract. Your spine makes a sound that could summon spirits. Your knees threaten to unionize. Your breath fogs in front of you, like you're exhaling secrets too heavy to keep. The straw clings to your back, your hair, your dignity. It's in places you don't remember exposing to straw. The room is dim, heavy with the smell of dampness, wool, and a kind of sadness that settles into corners like an elderly cat. Someone has clearly eaten something pickled in the night, and the evidence has merged with the smoky haze still hanging in the air. Your blanket, a term used generously, is now crumpled halfway across the room, likely kicked in the night during one of the many territorial disputes over body heat. You stare at it like it betrayed you. It stares back. The goat is awake. She stares at you with the same expression she always wears, somewhere between boredom and accusation. Her breath mists like yours, except hers smells faintly of something herbal and judgmental. You nod politely. She does not return the gesture. Your grandmother is already moving. She's small but eternal, like the moon or lice. She's stoking the fire, muttering to herself and poking at the embers like they've disappointed her personally. The pot over the hearth burps once, warning that breakfast will be both hot and conceptually disappointing, probably turnip-based, possibly featuring something rehydrated. No one asks. You pull on your socks, still warm from the night before, though they now feel oddly crispy, like toast. That's reconsidering its career. Your shirt smells of smoke, body, and effort. Your trousers sag with the resignation of clothing that's been through things. You tighten the string and pretend it helps. The fog in your head refuses to lift. You're not tired exactly, just murky, like your thoughts have been soaking in cold dishwater all night. You shuffle toward the corner where a cracked basin holds the kind of water that remembers being ice. You splash it on your face. Time freezes. So do your eyebrows. You inhale sharply and rediscover your sinuses. The others start to stir. Your siblings make the sounds of people waking up from dreams that were probably not dreams at all, just shuffled fragments of yesterday repeated with slightly different goats. Someone farts. The dog sneezes. The cycle of life continues. You glance at the window. The light hasn't reached it yet, but the shape of the sun is trying. It's weak, as if unsure it's worth the trouble today. You understand, but it counts. Even the smallest promise of light means the world didn't end in the night, not completely. Your father grunts himself awake, rubbing his face like it owes him something. He nods at you, a morning ritual that says both, "Good job not dying," and "Do more chores." You nod back. It's a language of few words and fewer expectations. Breakfast is served. It's warm. It doesn't taste like hope, but it also doesn't taste like dirt, and that's progress. You eat it gratefully, knees tucked to your chest, trying to keep the heat from your bowl close to your nose. And despite the cold, despite the smoke, despite the goat watching you like you owe her money, you're here. You're upright. You are, by all peasant metrics, thriving. You made it through the night. You're still foggy, still aching, still coated in a thin layer of doubt and straw. But you're alive. Mostly. You sit near the fire, hands curled in on themselves like they're trying to forget they ever existed. Your mittens, if you can still call them that, hang limply off one wrist, damp with a mystery moisture you've learned not to question. One is gone entirely, probably stolen in the night by your brother or swallowed whole by the straw mattress. The remaining mitten has a hole exactly where your thumb wants not to be frostbitten. It offers the illusion of comfort, like a compliment from someone who doesn't know your name. You try blowing warm air into your hands, but the effort only makes you dizzy. Your fingers remain stubbornly purple, buzzing with the kind of cold that makes you nostalgic for injuries. Your breath fogs around them uselessly. You rub them on your thighs, against the dog's side, even under your arms. Nothing works. Then your eyes land on the goat. She's sitting by the fire with the unbothered poise of someone who knows she'll outlive all of you. Her flank steams gently, radiating heat like a divine punishment for anyone too proud to ask. You stare at her. She stares back. There is a moment silent, intense, where you consider what needs to be done. You inch closer. She doesn't move. You lift your hands slowly, like approaching a nervous god. She doesn't flinch. Her eyes narrow, but not with threat, with calculation. The pact is made. You slide your hands underneath her belly, with the apologetic air of someone violating a social contract. The warmth is immediate and magnificent. It seeps through your palms and up your arms, sinking into your very bones like a whispered apology from the universe. You stifle a moan and catch your breath in your throat, afraid to break the moment. She shifts slightly, making space, as if to say, "Fine, but don't get cocky." You silently dub her Saint Warmbottom, patron of the desperate and digitless. The others notice. Of course they do. Your sister gives you a look that's equal parts disgust and envy. Your cousin raises an eyebrow and mutters something about dignity. But none of them move. None of them dare, because the goat has chosen you, at least for now, and because they're all still pretending that the fire is enough. You stay like that for longer than anyone could call normal. One hand, then the other, alternated like you're basting them in life. Occasionally, she shifts, snorts, grumbles deep in her throat, but she doesn't push you away. You whisper your thanks into her side, quiet promises of extra scraps and fewer complaints. At one point, your grandmother passes behind you and grunts in approval. Not a full sentence, just a sound that roughly translates to smart, or possibly weakling. In her dialect, they're the same thing. Eventually, you have to move. The goat gives a final snort that you take as a benediction. You pull your hands back, flexing your fingers like someone waking from a deep and forgiving sleep. They tingle now. You can almost feel them again. One still doesn't fully bend, but you decide that's a problem for future you. You sit back, tuck your arms into your shirt, and stare into the fire like someone who's glimpsed the edge of death and found warmth in an unexpected place. The room is still cold. The morning is still hard. Your mitten is still missing, probably forever, but your hands are warm, and the goat is watching you like she might let you do it again. Tension is thick enough to butter your bread with. Not that you have butter or bread, but if you did, it would spread easily over the cold silence currently simmering inside the hut. The fire has gone sullen again, shrinking into itself like it's afraid of being noticed. It's throwing off about as much heat as a lukewarm insult, and no one is moving. You sit near the hearth, legs pulled in, pretending to poke at the embers with a stick that does absolutely nothing. Everyone else is pretending they aren't cold. Your mother is sewing something that doesn't need sewing. Your brother is staring intently at the ceiling, as if contemplating the metaphysical significance of smoke stains. Your uncle is snoring, but dramatically, like each exhale is a protest. The goat sneezes, and even that carries judgment. No one wants to say it. No one wants to admit the fire needs more wood, because wood, as everyone knows, lives outside, in the cold, and chopping it requires effort, emotion, and an unfortunate proximity to the wind that's been personally harassing your family for generations. And so you all sit there, each of you slowly freezing into the exact position you woke up in, limbs stiffening, expressions souring. Then it begins, a cough, sharp, meaningful, timed perfectly between lulls in conversation that don't exist because no one's been speaking for 10 minutes. Another cough answers it, this one more theatrical, with a hint of wheeze. Someone shifts in their blanket pile. Your grandmother sighs, loudly. Her eyes close like she's praying for deliverance or death, whichever comes with firewood. Your mother rubs her hands together with the long-suffering air of someone who could have married that man from the village with a tiled roof and a working fireplace, but instead chose passion and chickens. Still, no one moves. You attempt the stick poke again. Nothing catches. Nothing stirs. The fire gives you a look, if glowing coals could look, that says it knows exactly what you are. A coward. Then your father snaps. He slams down his wooden spoon, rattling the pot and everyone's moral superiority. He stands, slow and purposeful, wrapping his coat around him like a martyr preparing for sainthood. He doesn't speak, but he doesn't have to. His boots thud against the floor like punctuation marks. By the time he reaches the door, He's muttering, not quietly, loud enough for the hut to hear, loud enough for the saints to take notes. Lazy children, no respect, freezing to death in my own home, while everyone watches like pigs at a play. He yanks the door open. The wind punches through the room like it's owed something. Everyone hisses in unison, clutching their blankets tighter, as if the cold is contagious and he's just sneezed in their faces. The door slams behind him. Silence falls again. The goat shifts back into the warmest spot, undisturbed. Your sister stares into the fire like maybe if she wishes hard enough, it'll become a bonfire out of guilt. Your cousin starts coughing. No one buys it. Then, outside, the rhythmic thud of axe against wood begins, sharp, steady, full of righteous fury. You all sit straighter. The fire crackles in anticipation, smelling opportunity. Your grandmother gives a curt nod, as if to say as it should be. The sound continues. Faster now, more dramatic. He's definitely showing off. The kind of chopping that splits logs and old resentments in half. He's muttering louder between swings. Something about how no one appreciates how their toes are still attached, how fire doesn't feed itself, how he should have let the goat raise you. By the time he storms back in, cheeks flushed and arms full of glorious, splittable salvation, the fire is practically giggling. You help him load the logs, and he grunts not thanks, just acknowledgement. A truce has been reached, at least until the next round of passive-aggressive warfare. The fire roars back to life, and with it, so do you. The pot has been bubbling since before anyone admitted they were hungry. It sits there, proudly suspended above the fire like a cauldron of intentions, neither kind nor cruel, just inevitable. You've been watching it for an hour, the way a starving man might eye a soggy piece of bread left out in the rain. Occasionally, someone stirs it with a spoon so long it could double as a jousting lance. The contents slosh with all the enthusiasm of old bathwater and about the same clarity. Still, you're invested. It smells like heat. That's all it takes, really. It doesn't smell good, not in the culinary sense, but it smells warm, and your body is too cold to be picky. Steam curls up into the air, clinging to the low ceiling like it's trying to escape. You let it hit your face and pretend it's doing something medicinal. It stings your nose and leaves a film over your upper lip that you tell yourself is healing vapors and not evaporated turnip juice. Someone ladles out the first bowl. It's mostly broth, a vague beige color with floating shards of something fibrous, possibly cabbage, possibly wood, possibly an old mitten boiled for flavor. Your sister holds the bowl like it's made of gold, cradling it against her chest and whispering to it like she's adopted it. You get the next one. The ladle dips down and hits something solid. There's a moment of reverence, a pause. The bowl tilts, and out slides a turnip the size of your palm, looking startled to be here. It lands with a soft plop in your soup. Then comes a shard of onion, a single lentil, a piece of what might be bone, might be root, might be the reason it tastes vaguely metallic. You sit down with your prize and stare at it. It stares back. You spoon the broth carefully, lips parting like it's a first kiss. The heat hits you instantly, scalding your tongue and your pride. You hiss, slurp, and swallow all at once, achieving a perfect harmony of pain, satisfaction, and surrender. It doesn't taste like food. It tastes like effort, like the memory of a flavor someone once described to the pot and hoped it would interpret. But it's hot, and that alone makes it holy. You try the turnip. It yields under your spoon with the texture of cooked boot leather, but carries a sweetness you weren't prepared for. A melancholy sweetness. The kind that whispers of better gardens, better harvests, better days. You chew it slowly, like you're honoring someone's legacy. Then you hit the bone. You're not sure what animal it came from. No one is. The goat is still here, so that narrows it, slightly. You poke it around the bowl like it might confess. It doesn't. You try to nibble a corner. It tastes like regret and minerals. You put it back and sip more broth, pretending that counts as second helpings. The others are eating in silence, a kind of communal trance. The hut fills with slurps and the occasional satisfied groan. No one speaks, not because they can't, but because the soup demands your full attention. It's not delicious, it's not nourishing, but it's hot, and it reminds you you're alive, which, in this moment, is enough. You drain the last of your bowl and set it down. The goat sniffs at it, judges your choices, and turns away. You think you see her roll her eyes. Fair. The ladle clangs against the side of the pot like a church bell for the desperate. Someone stirs. The soup has settled into layers, now smoke on top, disappointment in the middle, mystery at the bottom. The steam, though, the steam is magnificent. You've taken to sitting just slightly closer than is safe, letting the tendrils of heat touch your face like the ghost of affection. It's the only kind you've had in days. You lean in, a little too far, and just like that, you are reborn. Your face erupts in a dewy sheen, droplets clinging to your eyebrows, your nose, your upper lip, in places that have only known frostbite and family judgment until now. The sudden heat is overwhelming, beautiful, possibly hallucinogenic. It seeps into your cheeks, melts the stiffness from your jaw, and drips into your brain like whispered promises. You breathe in and immediately cough, but even that feels luxurious. For 5 seconds, you know joy. It's fleeting. The steam fades, your skin begins to chill again, and with it, your hope. But those 5 seconds are yours. You hold them close, like a stolen loaf of bread or a fond childhood memory that wasn't technically yours, but you've decided to adopt. Your mother doesn't notice. She's still sewing a sock into a sleeve, for reasons no one's had the courage to ask about. Your siblings are arguing about whether burnt onion counts as a vegetable. The goat has stolen someone's scarf and wrapped it around her neck like a fashion statement. You cry. Not dramatically, just a quiet internal leak. The kind of tear that doesn't ask for sympathy, just escape. It slides down your cheek, mingles with the condensation, and disappears. No one notices. You're not even sure if it happened or if your pores are just malfunctioning. You shift slightly, pretending it's to get more comfortable, but really you're angling your face again. You chase the steam like a cat hunting sunbeams, nose first into the rising vapor. The pot spits at you. You don't care. You'd take a burn. You welcome it. You start to understand why the idea of eternal fire sounded good to so many people. If the afterlife has this kind of heat, you're willing to sin creatively. The fire pops. Someone yelps. A spark hits the floor and is quickly stomped out with a boot and a curse. For a moment, there's chaos. Blankets are flung. The goat bleats dramatically. Someone throws a ladle for no reason. But then it all settles again into the gentle quiet of shared suffering. You lick your lips. They taste like smoke and salt, possibly tears. You reach toward the pot, thinking of steam and warmth and the possibility of a second helping, even if it's just broth and boiled betrayal. But the pot is empty. Someone scraped the bottom when you weren't looking. You stare into it, heart hollowing. There's a bit of onion skin clinging to the rim, taunting you. The steam is already fading. You try to breathe it in before it's gone, like a final blessing from a god who's already packed up and moved to a warmer parish. You sit back slowly, skin cooling, eyes dry again. You can still feel the warmth ghosting over your face, a phantom kindness. Steam is a luxury now. And you're not sure if you're mourning the soup, the warmth, or just the realization that you've started to envy the goat. You drop into sleep like you've been punched in the soul. It's not graceful, not the kind of slumber poets write about with lavender-scented metaphors and angelic sighs. It's a tactical surrender. You don't sleep on the straw mattress so much as you fall into it, entangled in its itchy embrace like a prisoner shackled by hay and shame. Your arms fold weird. One leg dangles off the edge. A chicken is near your face. None of this is optimal. But you're tired. Not the kind of tired that can be solved with a nap or a brisk walk or whatever monks do for self-care. This is the kind of tired that lives in your bones, behind your eyes, wrapped around your spine like a wet rope. So you collapse, boots still on, blanket mostly off, body curled in whatever formation doesn't jab you with splinters or siblings. And still, sleep does not come kindly. First, there's the fire. It pops, loudly, like it has unresolved trauma. You jerk awake, certain someone's being murdered. No, just a log. A petty, dramatic log with timing as bad as your uncle's storytelling. Then the wind. It howls like it's been rejected from the afterlife and now haunts the outside of your hut as revenge. It squeezes through the cracks in the wall, slinking in like a thief with icy fingers. You roll over. It follows. You bury your face in a sack that once held barley and now smells like someone else's dreams. It doesn't help. You start muttering curses half remembered from your grandmother, invoking saints you're pretty sure were fictional. Eventually, sleep drags you under. But even in unconsciousness, peace is rationed. You dream of summer, the kind of summer with actual sun, and bees, and fruit that doesn't come pickled in mystery brine. In the dream, you're barefoot, and warm, and full of bread that didn't come with judgment. A breeze touches your face like a lover. Then the breeze turns. It gets colder. It starts to whistle. You wake up to a hole in the wall, whimpering cold directly onto your neck. You sit up, disoriented. There's straw in your mouth. Something has pooped near your elbow. You don't look. You won't look. You lie back down and start over. This time you wedge yourself between two siblings for insulation. One of them kicks in his sleep. The other snores like a dying accordion. You shift, then shift again, then accept that comfort is a myth created by the church to sell candles. You fall asleep with one arm under your body, one foot under the goat, and your face pressed against the wooden slats of the wall, which are somehow colder than outside. In your dream this time, you're in battle. A real one. Spears, horses, shouting. You wake up mid-mutter, whispering the name of your cousin like he's betrayed you. He might have. It's unclear. Your mouth is dry. Your socks are wet. Your soul is wrinkled. But you're still breathing. And in this hut, in this winter, that's practically a luxury suite. The air inside the hut is somewhere between wood smoke and damp wool, with a hint of mystery illness. You wake up to the sound of coughing, which is normal now. Not just one cough, either a symphony of them. Dry hacks, chesty barks, polite little throat clears that spiral into something far more dramatic. The hut isn't quiet. It never is. But the night has carved it down to essentials. Breathing, creaking beams, and a cough every 7 seconds. At first it was annoying. That was days ago, or weeks. Time has no shape anymore, just meal markers and sleep cycles. But now the coughing is oddly reassuring, predictable, comforting, in the way the goat's smell is comforting. Not pleasant, just known. When someone coughs, you do a quick roll call in your mind. That one's Ma, short and sharp, like she's trying not to disturb anyone while failing entirely. That wheezy one with the theatrical throat rattle is your uncle. His cough could win awards. He somehow makes it sound like a political statement. And that faint, scratchy one in the corner is the baby, which is alarming. But the baby coughs with the commitment of someone twice her age, so you pretend it's fine. You don't cough yet. Not out loud. You've developed a kind of pride around it, as if your silence will protect you from whatever strange, damp plague is clearly circulating through the straw and ceiling beams. You breathe shallowly and with purpose, like a monk meditating in an ice bath. If you can just not inhale deeply, you won't catch anything. Logic. The fire sputters in the hearth. You can see the smoke curling lazily around the ceiling, gathering like gossip, thick enough to draw shapes in. The hut's only window is coated in a fine layer of frozen breath, and someone scratched a crude face into it and a lopsided smile with accusing eyes. You're pretty sure it was your brother, or the goat. Either way, it watches. Another cough rattles through the room, this one moist and philosophical. You blink at the ceiling and listen to it echo slightly, bouncing off the pots and wooden beams like it's trying to find its place in the world. You shift under your blanket, really more of a cloth suggestion, and accidentally elbow your sister. She coughs in retaliation. Not a real one. Just enough to remind you that you are not alone. No one is ever alone here. There is always a cough, a foot, a snore, or the ghost of last night's turnip stew to keep you company. In the dark, people start coughing in patterns now. You hear them communicate across the hut. A 3-cough volley from the back corner gets a 2-cough response from near the door. You imagine they're exchanging pleasantries or secrets. The goat coughs once, pointedly, and everyone pauses for just a second. It's impossible to tell if she's caught something or if she's mocking you. You don't question her anymore. Your uncle shifts loudly and releases another one of his signature wheeze coughs, the kind that ends with a noise like someone stepping on a flute. He always follows it with a grunt, as if blaming the air for challenging him. Then, silence, just for a moment, long enough for everyone to collectively wonder if he's died this time. Then another cough, half-hearted and triumphant. Still alive. You press your fingers to your lips, not in fear, but to see if they're still warm. Barely. The fire needs feeding, but no one moves. You're all waiting it out, hoping someone else breaks first. The coughs continue. Someone groans in the corner, then starts a raspy tune, half lullaby, half incantation, before giving up halfway through the first verse. Energy is scarce. You cough once. You don't mean to. It just slips out, like a confession. Immediate silence follows. The room collectively turns toward your general direction with a level of interest normally reserved for bear sightings or surprise bread. You clear your throat in a way that suggests dust, not doom. Everyone silently accepts this. No one says a word. But you are one of them now. The coughers. It doesn't even feel that bad. You breathe in, shallow and soft, and try to sleep. Around you, the sound continues, a staggered rhythm of human survival. You don't need to speak. The hut is full of language already. Coughs, groans, wheezes, Morse code for the ill-equipped. You close your eyes and let it wash over you like a lullaby made of lungs. The chicken is asleep again, deeply, absolutely, offensively asleep. She's nestled by your feet like a little feathered queen, wings tucked, head under, radiating the kind of serene warmth usually reserved for saints and bakery ovens. Her body heat leaks up through the rag you call a blanket, reminding you of everything you are not comfortable, relaxed, or blissfully unaware of your surroundings. You, in contrast, are awake. Again, you've shifted 14 times. You've tried lying flat, curling up, uncurling, laying diagonally, and at one point attempted the fetal position, but were thwarted by an elbow belonging to someone you're not even sure is family. The straw pokes your back in new and interesting ways. Your leg has gone numb, which you tell yourself is just efficient hibernation. The wind howls outside like it's angry you're not out there with it. And the chicken? She snores, not loudly, but it's there, a soft little snuffle that drifts up like judgment. You didn't know chickens could snore. You wonder if she dreams, probably of warmer places, cleaner nests, and a time before she was conscripted into your nightly human pile. Her feathers puff slightly with each breath, and when you shift to find a slightly less miserable patch of blanket, she shifts too closer. You don't know whether to thank her or apologize. Someone mutters in their sleep. Someone else lets out a fart, so theatrical it should have had a curtain call. No one moves. The fire has gone sullen again, just a few dim coals sulking in the ashes, not bothering to contribute. The cold creeps back in, wrapping around your toes like a moist accusation. You consider waking the chicken and asking her how she does it, how she finds peace in this nest of human desperation and failed insulation. But you don't, because there is a hierarchy here, and the chicken is above you now, You remember when she first started sleeping indoors? It was supposed to be temporary. A frost had rolled in early, and Ma said it'd be cruel to leave the animals out. So in came the chicken. One night, maybe two. That was the plan. That was 2 fortnights and a go. Now she has a spot. Not assigned, exactly, but everyone knows it's hers. Last night you got too close, and she pecked your shin. Not hard, just enough to let you know. Boundaries exist. She shifts again and emits a sound so content, so smug, you briefly consider trading souls with her. She's earned this, you think. She lays eggs, she eats bugs, she minds her own business, and doesn't complain when someone uses her wing as a foot warmer. You haven't even contributed firewood in 2 days. You're barely pulling your weight. Another gust of wind whistles through the wall, making the window shutter rattle like bones. The chicken does not flinch. Her peace is invincible. You sigh and pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. It smells like cabbage and damp dog. The chicken smells like straw and sun-warmed hay, and possibly a touch of superiority. Someone rolls over behind you and knees your spine. You bite back a groan, not wanting to wake the sleeping poultry royalty. Your arm is asleep now, which is the only part of you that is. You stare into the darkness and try to count the things you're grateful for. The list is short and mostly chicken-shaped. Eventually, exhaustion folds you in half and lets you drift uneasily, but enough. You float somewhere between sleep and surrender, feeling the occasional twitch from the bird at your feet. It's oddly comforting, like sharing a bed with someone who knows all your worst traits but still doesn't leave. When dawn stabs a pale beam through the shutters, it lands directly on your face. The chicken doesn't move. She'll rise when she's ready. You, however, blink yourself into a sitting position, joints cracking like ice in a thaw. You look down at her. She opens one eye. A long, slow blink. Regal. You bow your head slightly in acknowledgement. She closes her eye again and resumes her reign. Long live the chicken. The frost is back. Not outside, where it belongs, but inside. Inside, on your side of the window, like an uninvited guest who brought no gifts and stole all the warmth. You stare at it for a moment, bleary-eyed and barely functioning, then drag yourself upright with a sort of groan that implies both physical pain and spiritual betrayal. There it is, a perfect crust of white, laced across the pane, curling like delicate feathers, beautiful in the way betrayal sometimes is. You stretch a finger out from under the blanket pile, the sacrificial lamb of digits, and press it to the glass. Your skin sizzles in protest. The cold bites down, sharp and smug, but you press anyway, drawing a shaky line through the frost until your name appears. Not all of it, just the first 3 letters before your knuckle gives out and the cold wins. You stare at the half-formed name. It's oddly powerful, that childish act of claiming space on a window you don't own in a home that barely holds together. Like maybe if you mark it enough, it'll start to feel like something more than a drafty wooden box with hay and secrets and that one unsettling patch on the wall that may or may not be growing. Behind you, someone coughs violently and then rolls over, pulling away half of a blanket that was mostly yours. You don't react. You don't have the energy. Instead, you place your forehead against the glass and listen to it whisper. It doesn't really speak, but you imagine it does, and what it says is cruel. You chose this, the frost hisses, which is a bold statement coming from frozen condensation, but you let it stand. Technically, you didn't choose this. No one wakes up and says, yes, this is the life I crave. Splinters in my elbows, frostbite flirtation on my toes, and a goat that farts in her sleep. You didn't pick it. You were born into it, woven into the straw with the rest of your family, wrapped in layers of hand-me-down wool and low expectations. But still, the frost judges. You lift your hand, now numb and shiny, and try to blow warm air on the window. It fogs briefly. Then the frost fights back, reclaiming the space like a petty land dispute. You wipe the pain with your sleeve and it squeaks, loud enough to wake someone. A voice mutters from the far side of the room. "Stop communicating with the glass," it says, muffled and cranky. You don't answer, partially because you're not entirely sure you're awake, and partially because you're pretty sure you lost the moral high ground sometime around drawing hearts in the frost last night. A drip falls from the ceiling and hits your shoulder with insulting precision. The roof leaks in rhythms now. You've named the pattern above your sleeping spot, the slow betrayal waltz. You shift left, further from the leak, and closer to the window. Your breath fogs again, dancing briefly before vanishing into nothing. You cry. Not loudly, not even dramatically. Just one tear, because that's all your body can afford right now. It slides down your cheek, slow and freezing, and lands somewhere near your collarbone, where it joins the rest of the moisture, slowly converting your linen shirt into a mobile swamp. The chicken stirs, not enough to contribute warmth, but enough to look personally inconvenienced by your emotions. She pecks at the floor and settles again. Her eyes close. You envy her more than you should. Outside, it's still dark. Not the good kind of dark that promises sleep and stories and stolen sweets under blankets. No, this is the heavy kind. The kind that weighs on your chest and reminds you the sun doesn't care about your frostbitten toes or your one remaining dry sock. But still, you sit by the window. You trace another line in the frost. This one curls into a spiral. Maybe a snail, maybe a fingerprint, maybe just proof you're still here, breathing, despite the house's best efforts to the contrary. The frost doesn't speak again, which is a shame. You were starting to enjoy the conversation. You murmur the usual prayer, the one about mercy and forgiveness, and not waking up frozen to the floor like a poorly insulated carrot. It's not elegant, but it's honest. Your words puff into the cold air, barely warmer than the silence they disturb. There's no priest here to judge the theology, just the goat, chewing loudly in the corner like she knows something you don't. Your hands are clasped, but mostly for warmth. It's less about reverence and more about not letting your fingers fall off. You finish the prayer with a half-hearted amen that sounds more like a groan, then cross yourself out of habit, superstition, and the faint hope that maybe God's paying attention tonight. A bowl lands in your lap with the grace of a falling stone. It's porridge, allegedly. You peer into it with suspicion. The texture is less meal and more building material. If you flipped it over, it might retain the shape of the bowl. If you threw it at the wall, it might stick. You're fairly certain it has in the past. Still, it's warm, barely, and it smells vaguely of oats, or at least something oat adjacent. You take a bite and immediately understand why it's served right before sleep. Not because it's comforting, but because it dulls all your senses to the point where unconsciousness becomes a mercy. The porridge clings to your spoon with unusual loyalty. You tilt it sideways. It doesn't move. You consider using your tongue, but it seems like a commitment you're not ready for. You sigh and dig in, the way a miner might approach a new tunnel, cautious, resigned, and prepared for disappointment. Your teeth do their best, but the porridge fights back. It sticks to your ribs. It sticks to the roof of your mouth. It may, at this point, be attempting to form alliances with your molars. You swallow, eventually, though it's not so much eating as defeating. It settles heavily in your stomach, anchoring you to the earth. You imagine your soul slowly giving up and sinking into the thick gray sludge. Across the room, someone belches softly. A shared ritual, a quiet understanding. This is dinner. This is penance. Not the grand, biblical kind of penance, where a prophet fasts in the desert and speaks to angels. No, this is the kind of penance where you chew your supper until your jaw hurts and pretend the gritty bit wasn't a pebble, or a beetle, or both. You finish the bowl, not out of hunger, but obligation. Hunger left a while ago, probably ran off with your dignity and that one pair of dry socks. What's left is duty, and maybe fear that someone will offer seconds. You hand the bowl back with a nod, which is peasant for thank you, and also, please don't make me relive that. Then it's time for sleep, or something like it. You crawl back into the straw, the blankets, the layers. The goat is already there, curled up like royalty. You scoot beside her, not because you want to, but because you have to. Warmth has no pride. Warmth has no shame. Warmth sleeps wherever the goat will allow. The porridge begins its slow migration through your body, warming you in patches like lumpy embers. You feel it working, anchoring you, numbing you, possibly beginning a new civilization in your lower intestines. You close your eyes and whisper one last prayer. It's short, something like, let tomorrow be warmer, or at least less crunchy. Then silence, then sleep, maybe. Then the familiar creak of the wind pressing against the hut, looking for a way in, always looking. The candle flickers in the middle of the table like it's auditioning for a ghost story. It doesn't illuminate so much as it suggests light casting long, trembly shadows that dance across the walls like they've got secrets. The whole room becomes sepia-toned and vaguely judgmental. It's the kind of light that makes even a bowl of turnips look emotionally complex. You sit near it, not because it helps you see, but because it feels like a moral anchor. One flame standing firm against the vast and endless cold. One tiny rebellion against a night that wants nothing more than to freeze the hope out of your bones. It smells like wax and burnt wick and mild despair, but it's yours. Your sister sits across from you, eyes wide, blanket wrapped around her like a shroud. She leans in and whispers, I saw a ghost. You look up from your crust of bread, chewing slowly. Not because it's dramatic, but because the bread is older than you, and you're worried about your teeth. You raise an eyebrow. She nods, furiously. Right over there, by the barrel, pale and tall, watching. You squint into the shadows. There is indeed a shape. Long, slightly hunched, motionless. You sigh. That's Uncle Merrick, you say. She blinks. Are you sure? Yes. He just doesn't have his hat on, she gasps. He's bald? Bald and brooding, you confirm. He's been that way since the pig incident. No one brings up the pig incident anymore, partly because it was traumatic, mostly because the pig still lives among you and you're afraid it might be holding a grudge. Everyone around the room nods solemnly. Uncle Merrick doesn't move. He might be asleep. He might be meditating. He might be dead. It's hard to tell in this light, and no one's going over there to find out. The candlelight does terrible things to people's faces. Foreheads become cliffs. Noses cast shadows big enough to rent out. Your mother looks like a prophet. Your cousin looks like he's plotting something. The goat, who has inserted herself between two sleeping bodies on the floor, looks like an ancient forest spirit who's seen too much. The silence stretches out, broken only by the crack of the fire and the occasional cough from someone who's either mildly ill or cursed. You watch the flame melt slowly down the wax, becoming shorter, weaker, more desperate. It won't last the night. It never does. You're not sure if it gives up or if the darkness simply wins, but the outcome is always the same. The candle is doing its best. You respect that. Someone across the room lets out a sigh that sounds like it's been building all day. Your father shifts under his blanket cloak and mutters about wax being expensive, as if the candle can hear him and should feel bad for existing. No one responds. We've all been passive-aggressively scolded by the candle before. It's a tradition now. Your little brother tries to use the candle to read a page of scripture. It's upside down, and you're fairly certain he can't actually read, but the gesture is noble. The candle gives him just enough light to pretend, which is really all anyone's asking for these days. You stare at the flame until your vision starts to blur, the glow doubling and dancing. Your eyes water. Or maybe it's just emotion, or the smoke, or the general ambiance of being alive in a barely insulated wooden box while winter claws at the roof like an angry cat. The wax puddles in the base, forming strange little drips that harden into frozen tears. You wonder if candles get tired, if they ever wish they were torches or fireplaces or just something less lonely. You reach over and nudge it a little closer, sharing the heat like a conspirator. Your sister leans in again. What if it really was a ghost? You look at her, then at the candle, then it picked a terrible house, you say. She laughs, and it's soft and real, and echoes in the small space like music. The kind of laugh that makes things feel slightly less cursed, even if just for a second. The candle sputters. Everyone flinches. Uncle Merrick finally shifts and grumbles something in a language that might be Latin or just sleep. The candle rallies. You sit back, wrap yourself tighter in your patchwork blanket, and watch it burn. One tiny flame against the frost. One flicker of stubborn light in a hut full of contempt and cabbage. It's enough. For now. You sleep like a rock in a landslide, surrounded by chaos but too exhausted to care. There is snoring in stereo, layered and looping, like someone taught the entire room how to poorly play a didgeridoo. There's a persistent wheeze near your left ear. Not quite human, but not quite concerning enough to investigate. You assume it's your cousin, or the goat. Either way, you've made peace with it. Your straw pile rustles with every movement, crunching like a nervous squirrel in autumn. The straw doesn't cushion you so much as announce every thought you try to have. It creaks, shifts, pokes, and occasionally squeaks in ways straw shouldn't. You're fairly certain it has its own opinions. You're too tired to ask what they are. Somewhere near your feet, someone sneezes with the force of a thunderclap. You flinch, but only slightly. Your eyes stay closed. Your soul stays asleep. You've developed the medieval equivalent of noise-canceling ears. You are one with the din. A fart escapes near the fire and earns a chorus of complaints, all muffled under blankets. No one admits it. No one has to. You all know who it was. It's a ritual now, part of the nocturnal soundtrack. The goat shifts beside you, her hooves clicking gently against the clay floor. She grunts, stands, and promptly knocks over a tin pot with the grace of a drunk philosopher. The clang is immediate and painful. The echo bounces off the low ceiling and into everyone's bones. Somewhere in the dark, someone swears creatively. Another person throws a slipper in the general direction of the noise. It hits your forehead. Still, you do not rise, because you've adapted. You've reached a state beyond caring. A realm where the body functions on instinct and the mind floats above it all. Mildly detached, like a saint or a heavily concussed monk. The cold nudges at your spine, a persistent little claw reminding you that warmth is temporary and betrayal is inevitable. Your blanket has shifted, or been stolen, probably by your grandmother again. She moves like a ghost and hoards like a dragon. You know better than to try and retrieve it. Instead, you curl tighter into yourself. Your knees nearly touch your chin. Your elbows make peace with your ribs. You tuck your face into the hood of your shirt, which smells like onions and survival. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar. A log shifts in the hearth. A spark snaps. There's a moment of silence, then a low groan from someone who rolled too close and realized it too late. A thud follows, then a short scream. You hear it all, but you remain in your nest because that's what this is now. Not a bed, not a place to rest, but a nest constructed of thin hopes, recycled blankets, and stolen warmth. It holds you like a suspicious parent holds a secret, grudgingly and with conditions. You dream in short, chaotic bursts. Images flash of summer fields, of dry socks, of bread with actual flavor. A chicken walks by wearing a crown. Someone offers you a warm bath, and then punches you in the throat with an icicle. It's not restful, but it's something. You wake briefly when someone steps on your foot. They whisper, "Sorry," like they mean it, which they don't. You grunt something that might be forgiveness or just gas. Then you're asleep again. This is your superpower now. Sleeping through the noise, through the cold, through the existential ache of knowing you live in a hut with 17 sentient organisms and exactly 0 privacy. You've leveled up. Your past self would cry. Your current self just snores. The fire crackles. The wind howls. Someone mutters about demons. You don't move. You don't blink. You dream about blankets that stay put, rooms that hold silence, and goats that ask permission before climbing into bed. But mostly, you just sleep, because tomorrow is another day of pretending that soup is food and that the floor isn't judging you, and you'll need your energy for that. The first thing you notice is the absence of frost on your eyelashes. It's a confusing realization, like discovering your least dependable cousin arrived on time. You blink. Your breath hovers for a second in the air, but doesn't quite fog. You try again, just to be sure. Still nothing. You sit up slowly, the way you'd rise from a suspicious hammock bracing for betrayal. But the air greets you with the chill of early spring, not the clawed fist of winter. It is tolerable, suspiciously so. Your joints crack, but not from freezing, just from age, overuse, and the lingering trauma of sleeping with your knee jammed against the firewood crate for 6 weeks. You stretch, cautiously, like someone who's been burned too many times by hope. The straw doesn't crunch like it used to. It sort of sighs. You look to the hearth, expecting the usual tragic remains of last night's fire, an ember or two clinging to life like a bad decision. But it's still burning. Not dramatically, not impressively, but enough to matter. Enough to say, yes, I remember you. There's even warmth, real warmth, the kind that doesn't involve bargaining with the goat for partial custody of her body heat. And then, as if summoned by thought, you feel the goat shift beside you. Her hooves dig slightly into your thigh, just enough to remind you that your space is conditional. She opens one eye, stares at you with the judgment of a disappointed nun, and goes back to sleep. Her breath smells like hay and defiance. You glance around the room and notice something even stranger. People are waking up slowly, but not from misery, just from habit. No one is shivering dramatically. No one is crying into their shirt. Your grandmother isn't hoarding all the blankets like a frostbitten dragon. Your brother's nose isn't blue. Someone opens the door. Sunlight pours in. Actual, honest sunlight, warm and yellow and unrepentantly cheerful. It hits the floor like a spilled blessing, catching on dust motes and old soup stains. It crawls up the walls, illuminating every crack in the plaster and every cobweb your family has collectively chosen to ignore. It feels intrusive. It feels sacred. You are not emotionally prepared. A breeze slips in after it, light and soft and smelling faintly of mud and something alive. You inhale like a man who's been underwater all winter and has only now come up for air. Your lungs don't protest. They accept it. Your shoulders relax for the first time in what feels like years. You almost smile. The room begins to stir. A hen flaps off the windowsill with great drama, like she too has decided that today is the start of her personal renaissance. Your uncle mutters something about spring festivals and stumbles toward the door as if joy might be contagious and he's unsure if he wants it. Your sister starts singing. It's off-key and about bread, but no one stops her. It feels right. You shuffle to the doorway and squint at the world. The snow is retreating, sulking into the ditches like a villain who's lost the final battle. Patches of earth peek through brown, wet, and weirdly beautiful. A bird chirps. Just one. You look at it like it's a hallucination. It keeps chirping anyway. You forgive it. You survived. Not with grace. Not with dignity. You have cried over cabbage, fought a chicken for fire proximity, and worn the same socks for an amount of time that no modern calendar should recognize. But you are here, breathing, standing, mostly clean, definitely alive. Behind you, the goat shifts again and farts. Even that feels poetic.